And this all right. So welcome everyone who is here with us. We are here for day one of the Navaratri Summit of Women Practitioners in Tantra. I am your overjoyed host, Halo Saronko. I'm the founder of the online and international school, Shakti Temple Arts. This is a school of feminine embodied awakening, bringing spiritual and embodiment traditions to women from the tantric systems, from the Taoist system, and from the systems of temple dance. And these are systems, in a world where so many spiritual paths have been kind of dominated by a more masculine energy, we have the opportunity here to find our way as practitioners, as women, which is actually a newer experience in the global stage. So I am overjoyed to present over the next 9 days some of the most incredible inspirations, colleagues, teachers in my life, who are stunning examples of feminine practitioners and leadership and wisdom teachings in these realms, and to give them a platform to share their voices, their wisdom, their beauty. And so today I have with me my very beloved colleague in my India pilgrimage journeys and a very dear sister who I've shared just some of the most precious experiences of my own life as a practitioner, Ananda Shakti. Ananda Shakti has 44 years of experience in the yogic and tantric systems. She is a wealth of knowledge, and she is particularly, in my opinion, an incredible pioneer where it's of bringing yoga into a more feminine approach, a more kind of liminal approach. And I'll let her speak more about that. But I'm going to be talking with Ananda Shakti today, and we're going to be sharing about the mother and as we approach her in this Navaratri. So thank you again, and thank you so much, Ananda Shakti, for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share just about yourself before we begin?
First of all, thank you so much, Hayla, for having me here, and thank you to all the viewers for dialing into this kind of experience. It's so important for our collective at this time because it is the feminine impulse, whether it's coming through a woman or through a man, that's leading us to the next place. It just is, and it's not because there's anything wrong with the patriarchy. It's finished. Everything has a time where it completes, and then the next thing steps forward. And so we all need to discover what the divine and the ordinary feminine means within us, inside ourselves and outside ourselves, whether we're men or whether we're women, and to be able to bring her grace and her beauty and her love and her fierceness and her compassion and all of her, high visions and all of her qualities forward. So thank you for joining into this and letting your own being really commune with it and get inspired with it, and then take it deeper into the world in the way, whatever it is that you do. And I have had the immense honor in my life of, as Halo says, now 44 years experience, which is kind of a magic number. So it's a bit of a magic year. And of meeting these teachings at a very young age, and having an unusual life before that. So just transiting from being a singer in an all-girl punk band to being a practitioner of the divine arts in the mood of the Great Mother. And that's what I do through teachings that come from classical yogic teachings, classical tantric teachings, teachings that come through the work that I do as an intuitive reader, understanding the nature of karma and samskara and what it takes to really get us off the wheel of karma, which is the reason for the human birth, and how to do this in a way that is beautiful, that is loving, that is feminine in its nature, that is an artistic experience of transformation. So that's a little bit about me.
That's, yeah, so beautifully said. And yeah, I'd love for you to share with us a little bit more about some of the I call them the breadcrumb moments, because I feel like when Ma starts to draw us to her bosom, there's like a way that she'll drop these like synchronicities, these little breadcrumbs along the way that lands us in her lap. And, for those of you here in the summit, clearly some breadcrumbs have been dropped. You're here with us, you're in this with us. So at whichever stage you're at on your own path. And I feel like there's so much teaching within the personal journey of each practitioner, to hear some similar threads of how each of us ended up here, and also some unique twists and turns, but there's so much to learn just within the journey of a practitioner. So would you share with us some of those like profound breadcrumb moments that landed you here 44 years later?
I will. So just a very short backup. I was a teenager from Canada, from Toronto, Canada, but had moved to New York City with a group of girls that had formed together in the punk days. Had moved to New York City together, and I was a very successful punk singer in an all-female band. And as you probably know about the punk world, it's a very Dionysic, kind of Dionysian, that's the right word, kind of experience. It's trying to break form. It's trying to break through limitation. And as you mostly all probably know too, people did it in ways that were very self-destructive, and people did it in ways that were artistic. But it was that idea, there's something more than this, there's something more than this, and we're gonna go for it. So I had that kind of tendency in myself that I was not satisfied. I didn't want anything normal. I didn't want school, I didn't want marriage, didn't want kids, I didn't want anything normal. I just wanted this experience. I didn't know what it was. It was a vibrant experience of like, we're breaking through the form, we're making something new happen. It's just like this kind of vibrant experience. I knew that's what I wanted. I knew from a very young age. And so I did that, I did that. And I had this feeling inside me from a very young girl that would come just out of the blue for me, of this feeling would just come over me, make me feel this kind of electrical feeling. Actually, I would start to feel really alone in the universe, and I would try to like, okay, I'd imagine I could be with somebody really special, and it would take the feeling away, right? It was this pain of separation that was very deep. And then it kind of went away. And then as a teenager, it started to come back again. And now I was actually in the world with all these people that I thought were like the best thing on earth. And then I remember one time sitting there with this absolute idol of mine, and the feeling came. I used to call it the sinking feeling, because I feel like my stomach would kind of turn over and sink, and I'd be like, and I realized at that point that I thought, oh, okay, it's not from the outside. Nothing from the outside is ever that's not what I'm looking for. It's not something from the outside, because look, here I am, there he is. It was a man, and I'm just like, and I'm having this feeling. So it doesn't take it away. And so I was already I only just drank Perrier. I wasn't involved in kind of that part of the world. I was drinking Perrier. I was running every day. I started practicing yoga. And then I met my first guru, like a real spiritual mentor. And it was through that initiation I took initiation with him, and then it was like, boom, like this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is the thing that takes this sinking feeling away. Like, it's not from the outside. And so I left, I left a career that was at its height, and I left the whole thing. And it was not hard for me to leave it on an inner level, but I struggled with my commitment to other people. I struggled with disappointing people in that, and I had to go through a process of also realizing that there were things going on that were going to probably make it quite difficult for us as we moved forward, like different addictions and things were happening as well. Like, it was just, we were in different paths. We had started to go different ways, different explorations were happening. And so eventually I found that courage, and I said, okay, I'm leaving, and this is what I'm doing. And I knew that that's what I was looking for. So that was the very first thing. It was like this transformation of always knowing that I was looking for something else, having this this, in my case, it was this feeling of this sinking feeling from a little girl, like that was my discomfort. Like, how does this fix? It doesn't fix. My parents can't fix it. Like nothing seems to fix it. You know, famous people aren't fixing it. It's not fixed. It's not getting fixed by these things that we think should fix it. And so seeking it, it pushed me forward as a seeker. And so then I went very, very deep. Like my first initiation was more, it was in a very broad sense in terms of the philosophies. We studied everything. And really the main idea was to see the oneness in everything. So it wasn't patriarchal, it wasn't matriarchal, it wasn't deity based. You know, deities were there, but it wasn't based on that. It wasn't about the feminine, it wasn't about the masculine, it was about, oh, look at, here's the Bible, it's saying that. Oh, look at the Vedas saying that. Oh, look at how they're saying the same thing. This person's saying that, this philosopher's saying this psychologist is saying that, this is going over here, this is going over here. The idea was to cultivate this more like universal oneness kind of idea that was inclusive of everything. And our main practice, other than the practice of the Gyan, really it was Gyan Yoga in a way, like this understanding, was to go into extensive experiences of Yoga Nidra. So very, very long, you know, many hours of lying in deep, deep relaxation and allowing the transformation of the consciousness to take place. And so that had about, I'm trying to think how long I was with that teacher, maybe 10 years or so, maybe 15, I don't know, something between 10 and 15. And then I got into more of the formal, like what we call like formal classical teachings. These were classical teachings. They weren't like new age, just made up teachings. They were classical teachings, but they weren't asana based. It wasn't an asana based experience. It was much more of a gyan based. It was kind of a little bit bhakti, like in its nature of like the heart needing to be really involved. It was in this kind of a way. And then when I got involved in more like practicing asana, more as a really, really deep part of the practice rather than just something that was coming along. In different kinds of tantric, classical tantric practices, well, then the idea of the male and the female became very relevant, and the unification between the two of them. And I started having these experiences of the longing for the mother, the longing for that sense of that, you know, this idea of the Hiren Garbhana, like this cosmic womb, you know, what is this cosmic womb? And where is this mother? Where is she living? Like, what is this goddess frequency? And then I started to get really, really, really charged and hit by this frequency. When I'd go to temples, energies would just come through me, and I would just, for 1 minute, standing there, like, next minute, I'm just like bawling my eyes out. And it was always this feeling of like this kind of coming to terms with this desire just to be loved in this unconditional way, like, and just to be loved and to be held and to be able to feel safe in that vulnerable desire, you know, to be safe in that vulnerable desire. Because obviously I was a bit tough, right? I was living in New York City and in the punk world and everything. Like I could take care of myself, you know, I knew how to do that, right? But that's often a compensation for, like, it's two things. It's an ability to be a little adventuresome and everything, but it also can be a compensation for feeling like that's not really there underneath. And it was both things in my life. And so that was the feeling. It was like that feeling of like, wow, there's a place where I can go, where I really feel that I'm being completely held. And not only do I feel like I'm being completely held, but I feel like this feminine principle is not just allowed, but it's honored, it's glorified, it's enhanced. And up until that point, if you'd asked me, was I in more of a male path, I would have said no, because it wasn't a conscious thing. But when I started to really feel the invitation of the goddess I realized that I had been. I realized it was so much about my femininity that I was compartmentalizing to fit into this and to fit into that and to fit into here and to fit over there, to get this initiation or to do this or to be able to do that, that I was compartmentalizing myself. And then finally I had a vehicle. I had a vehicle, for being able to go, oh, hold on, there's something else. And it's scary. Like it's scary, the idea of actually being fully feminine. Um, it was scary, but and it still could be scary to me. Like it's still, there's points I still like, whoa, okay. Can I walk this down the street? I'm okay in my own bedroom, but can I take it outside and not be frightened that it's going to be like clawed at or like hit at or whatever, and to overcome those fears and and to reposition, really keep on asking for the mother's blessing to have compassion for if somebody does that, to understand like their pain. A mother doesn't abandon a child no matter what they do. She's there in this way of being able to understand their pain.
Mm. Oh my gosh, you brought me to tears. There's just like so much that's relatable, that I'm just, again, it's like the different experiences, but there's so much you shared that I'm just like, oh, I know all of that so intimately. Like it's just such a universal experience, I think, that you're speaking to with those of us who've landed here. And the couple of things that stood out, I really like that you brought in the idea of the seeker, because I think that is the preliminary to becoming a practitioner. Like we don't just become practitioners because, it's not an easy path. We become practitioners because there is that seeking. Like we start, we automatically as humans start, what do we do as babies? We're like grabbing out here. We're just getting caught in the sense objects of life, which are her essentially. But there does come a moment on our path as humans, whether this lifetime or another lifetime or a previous lifetime, where we realize this, for lack of better term, hole inside of us will never be filled by those things. It won't be filled by the perfect career. It won't be filled by the perfect relationship. It won't be filled by having the nicest car or being able to travel wherever. The whole goes with us in all those experiences. And this is why the grounds of the practitioner is so profound. And it's kind of an endangered thing in our modern world, although it's starting, I'm feeling it picking up speed, which is really beautiful. But there is that part of us that's like, I want to connect intimate. Like we all have this desire for an intimacy that there's like this taste of that we're born with in our mouths. And through life, it's like we know this level of intimacy with life itself, with ourselves, with our beloved ones is possible. But through life, we build up all these shells, all these armors. We come into this life with all these complex karmas already. And so much of the journey is like unshielding. And I love this taps into what you shared about, like, is it safe to be feminine? And I really relate to that in my own journey, even still to this day, because there's a level of surrender, letting my will be her will, and just trusting that her embrace does have me. It's like, how much can I let go into that and stop the fighting and the pushing and the efforting and surrender the doer who has a million task lists every day to the beingness, which is where the intimacy lies. We have all these, as my teachers calls it, and I love this, the elegant defense system. We all have this very elegant defense system of, oh, I need to be this way because da 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 da. And we all have it. I have it. We all have it. And to start to soften that and let there be that intimacy and to let the heart be pierced by life, regardless of circumstances. And to me, that is the mother. Like the mother can just wrap her arms around, like you said, anyone. She doesn't discern. She's like, you get my love, you don't get my love. That's not the mother. And I think this is a perfect segue into talking more about the mother, because this is the invitation, and especially as we start this Navaratri together, to just pour all the burdens of your heart into her lap. Just let yourself let go. Let yourself have, even if it's just for a couple hours, if you really can't take time off, to have just a little moment of retreat during this 9 nights, to just let it all go, and to feel her and to go into her embrace. Because the truth through the lens of these systems is that this is all her. Everything that is manifest is the mother. And so she's already holding us. It's just we can fight against that and not feel it, or we can bring our awareness, our attention, and our intention to that holding that's here always. It's not so much that she abandons us. A mother never abandons the child. It's that the child forgets that the mother's there sometimes. And so there's this beautiful way we can take this time, of Navaratri, to really feel her boons and her blessings in our life, and really find that deeper surrender and that deeper intimacy that we all yearn for, that draws us to her in the first place. So, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that the Divine Mother can offer us, or will offer us, or does offer us, that is, to me, the most important and valuable piece, is it's her continual presence through the contractions and the expansions of life. Like that it's not about, like, a lot of people come in and they want all their pain to be taken away. And, we have this word Ananda, and Ananda means bliss. But bliss, this kind of bliss, doesn't mean like, I'm just so happy all the time, right? It's not that. It means that you have this continual connection to the Supreme Presence with you at all times, whether you are experiencing the most horribly painful experience possible, or whether you're experiencing the most lofty experience possible. You never forget that you are one with the one of the one, that the mother is there with you through the whole thing. And then not only does it give you different navigating skills and abilities to move through all of them, because both sides have their strengths and their weaknesses. Both sides have their places where you can trip, where you can get caught, and basically an attachment to either one. There's like, they start to pull us into this, to this polarity. We have to be able to move in this fluid way. But so we learn these skills to be able to move through the contracted and expanded energies, and to really not just trust, but trust is a good thing to start off with, but to feel that the mother is with us through all of them, and that not only is she with us, but she's giving us these experiences for the evolution of our consciousness. And so, and then it's not even like, okay, so then we get our minds around the fact that the mother likes to give us some hard knocks and some easy ones, maybe because if we're good here and we're bad there. It's not that at all. It's like starting to just actually wake up to the reality that is around us. Any woman who has given birth, or anybody who knows anything about birth, it's a contracted and expanded experience. If you've watched anybody die in a natural way, they contract and they expand on their way out. And in between all of this, we are contracting and expanding and contracting and expanding. And that's the way it works. That's what's natural. That's the truth. It all being expanded is not the truth. This is called dissociation. Like when we start to go into these kinds of states, it's not the truth. It's contracted and expanded. And so it's so obvious, yet we miss it so much. We just miss it because we're conditioned to desire something different. But when we start to really go into deep goddess understanding and goddess practices and sadhanas and revelations, we make peace with that. We make peace with it. We no longer feel victimized by the contracted experiences. They're part of the expansion. One cannot exist without the other. And so then we learn how to ride the natural waves of the evolution of consciousness. And Navaratri, to me, it's like, yeah, it's like remembering that she's there and remembering that she's there, like through all of the difficulties, like not just through the good time, not just through the festival and everything's fun and it's easy and everybody's like, Jay, Mahishasuramadi. It's all like, but it's, it's like when the next difficulty comes up that we're like, oh, okay, Ma. Yeah, okay, thank you. What do you, I don't get it yet. Help me understand what's going on. Like, oh, I don't want this, but okay, I trust you now. I trust you. So show me, show me, show me, show me. It's a dialogue. It becomes a dialogue. We really want that relationship with the Great Mother to be a dialogue. She's there. Every single experience that we've ever had and that we ever will have is her grace. It's not only the good ones that are her grace, it's all her grace. And this is why, the really advanced practitioners in Tantra, especially, they're sitting on corpses. Like they're like not doing like, they're not sitting up like in heaven with like no difficulties. They're putting themselves like in the most difficult situation possible. They're sitting on actual corpses in the burning grounds, trying to meditate. And they have three things that can happen. They can die, they can go crazy, or they get a siddhi, like a special power. Only three things. There's nothing in between. So that because they want to know that this contracted and expansive thing is something that's natural, and they want to know how to work it. They want to know how to be with it and not lose their Anand, which is the mother, that they don't lose the mother in the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
how much more graceful is life when we don't fight? We talk about a lot in these systems, our attraction and aversion, and how
Yeah.
we're so ruled by these four. It's like a tug of war in our lives. Like, oh yes, I want that. Our desire. We can also call them our desires and fears,
Yeah.
right? So much of our entrapment in life is not just our fear, it's also our desires. We always, trying to fill that hole we talked about earlier. And so we like to, oh yes, yes, this, I want this, and sometimes we cling to things beyond them being actually healthy for us. And I think a really relatable experience is for anyone who's ever been in an unhealthy relationship and you're just clawing, you're like, no, I don't want to let this go. And Ma's like, well, you learned what you needed to learn here, and I'm going to take this from you now. Like a mother taking a dangerous toy from a child. The baby cries, but then
Yeah.
the baby also doesn't get hurt, and the baby learns to be stronger and to be more courageous. And after those relationships, oftentimes we'll have like a quantum leap in our own consciousness, and things are better on the other side. We're more wise, we're more powerful, we're more compassionate. And so it's like this. I mean, I always like talking to my own students about, those experiences in life where we just kind of land in the bottom of the well and there's just nothing. We stop our struggling and we just finally let go. There's nothing left to grab onto. And we're kind of in a dark night of the soul. And that when we really let ourselves finally go there, we fight like crazy. But when we finally let ourselves go, there's a presence there that you were talking about, that aloneness, we kind of find all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm not alone. And there's like, I'm just getting like full body chills. There's just something there. And it's
Yeah.
even with myself, because I've gone through this many times and I still fight it. I still fight the fall and the descent and the landing at the bottom of the well. But once I stop fighting, I'm just like, oh, thank God. Like like she's there. She's
Yeah.
there. So we can't say, she's in all of those experiences. And I love to say, speaking of the mother, that, we all come in through a human womb, and two of the other movements of the goddess of Shakti, of the mother, are like the expansion and contraction, same, but different. She conceals and reveals. So she
Yes.
conceals consciousness. And one of the ways she does this is through our karmas, right? So we come through a human womb. We come in with these particular karmas and some skaras that we need to grow through to find ourselves again, to realize that we are her. And
Yes.
then when we die, we release back into the cosmic womb, and we actually have an opportunity. Like, don't get me wrong, I am still afraid of death. I will admit it. But as practitioners, we look at death as this opportunity for ultimate liberation, because it's an opportunity to let those karmas and samskars go if we can die consciously, if we can surrender instead of fighting the experience of death. Right. I also think these challenging experiences of loss, letting go, things like this, fears manifesting, these kind of things throughout life, they're like a preparation for the final letting go of the personality, letting go of all that we loved in this life, letting go of our experiences in this life. Not an easy thing to do, but if in that moment we can just let that final exhale come and return to her womb, there can be so much beauty there. And I also think, like, what a beautiful, thinking of the fear that we all have innately built into us to keep us alive, right? The fear of death is to keep us alive. It's a beautiful thing that she created as part of our matrix, right? But what a beautiful thing to think about, that that's what happens when we die. None of us really know, right? There's all kinds of, every religion has its theories about what happens when we die, but this idea that that's my final and full surrender to her, back into her arms.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. It's like a reabsorb. I like to look at the whole process of from birth to death as being reabsorbed.
Yes.
So like you get
Exactly.
shot at. And then after that, every single piece of it is this process of being reabsorbed. And then and it is like a stage. So say we get shot onto stage, then the play's on, and it's on for the whole lifetime as we're doing all these things, acting out all this. It goes here, it goes there, and then we get reabsorbed. The curtain closes, and you're reabsorbed. Like that show's over. It's like, it's so beautiful, and one of the things that when I got to the next level of my experience of worship of the goddess, it was actually through one of the goddesses named Radha, who is the consort of Krishna. And I got struck not by Krishna at all. Like I go to the temples, I wasn't even looking at Krishna ever. I'd only look at Radha. It's like, because it was that she had this quality of love, and yet love where she also was like, could be really strong and like really righteous. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Righteous as well, like righteous about, what should happen, what shouldn't happen, all these kinds of things, and extremely loving at the same time. And I wanted to understand her love. I wanted to understand her love. And that was when I moved to India, really, was to try to understand Radha's love more deeply. That was why I went. And I went to Vrindavan. Most people go to Vrindavan for Krishna. I went there for Radha. That was, I was like, and then I'd go to the temples too. Then go, no, I'm not looking at him. I'm only, and until finally she told me, you have to look at him now. And I'm like, okay. Then I will look at him. And then I started looking at him, and I understood why I had to look at him now. Like it was a whole process in the consciousness and everything. But it was really profound. And during that time as well, I started to really experience and comprehend the goddess as what I like to call it, the way that if I was going to give a definition of the goddess, the visible and experiential form of creation. So to me, that's her definition. So she's the visible and experiential form of creation. So anything that we can see, anything that we can experience, whether it is in form or in formlessness, it doesn't matter, as long as it's an experience that this is who she is, this is what she is. So therefore, she is what I'm looking at right now, but she's also the eyes that are looking at it. She's both things, right? So I'm looking at the goddess, but it's the goddess looking at the goddess. And when I started to have that deeper understanding and started to bring it more into my day-to-day reality, this concept of doership it started to become less and less and less. I mean, and of course it comes and goes. But when I'd be really in that mood, be like, okay, she is doing everything. And then you find that spiritual paradox where even though she's doing everything, I still have to get up in the morning and, brush my teeth and wash and eat and do whatever it is. Like, I still have to do these things, but yet she's doing it. And to me, this is, to this point in my evolution in the worship of the goddess, or I won't even say the worship of the goddess, I'll say in the embodiment of the goddess and the path of the goddess, that's my highest experience, is that experience that she is not only everything that I can experience, but she's also the experiencer. And so then my limited ego is completely held. And yet its healthy will forces have to be totally activated the whole time, because then my choices become of a more important nature and a more important nature and a more important nature. And I have to learn how to choose out of limitation and into the greatness that we all are, and that she is, and that the way that we've been constructed by the goddess. And it's one of those incredible things, like spirituality is always a paradox. So it's not like I separate myself and I go and work on getting my will forces so that I can do that. It's actually by knowing that she's actually the experience itself and the one who is experiencing, that then my will forces start to actually very gracefully and very elegantly start to be able to make these new choices. It's not a battle within myself any longer. It's being held. I'm finding out who and what I really am. And this sounds like so beautiful and so graceful, and it is, and it sounds like it's such a break from the intensity of doership. And doership is really the great suffering that we have, because in doership is the expression of feeling that you're separate from creation, and the pain of separation is the pain. It's the source of every other pain that we can possibly have. And yet, so this is a very graceful, very beautiful way of thinking and way of experiencing that takes us out of that. And yet, in 2 seconds, we can be right back into the limited personality as the doer. So what I'm really suggesting to people that are exploring these kinds of practices, perhaps, or maybe this is brand new to you, maybe you are already a practitioner of this, and to me, the goddess practice is without any particular structure, meaning that it is all structures. So you can be doing this by being a gardener. You can be doing this by being a mother. You can be doing this by being a formal sitting down and doing yogic things practitioner. You can be doing it in any way. You can do it as a dancer, as a singer, as in so many different ways. But the key is, because it's so easy to forget, is to surround yourself with remembering, and to have, deep experiences of community that help you remember, and books or teachings that help you remember, and to just to try to remember that you're going to forget all the time. Try to at least remember that part. If we can remember that we're going to forget all the time, then we can start to actually remember what it is that we're trying to remember. And it's all, and then drop any tension around the process of remembering or forgetting, or any kind of self-judgment, or any like you did something right or you did something wrong. That's not the goddess. The goddess only lifts her sword to free you. She's never lifting her sword to tell you you did something wrong. She's only lifting her sword, right, Jaima, to free you. That's the only reason she lifts it. So she's not interested in telling you that you did something wrong. And anybody who might be a mother out there knows that, although you can get impatient with your children, you can do that. In your heart of hearts, you never really want to tell them that they did something wrong. You just want to free them. You just want to make sure they're safe. You just want to help them get to the next place. And if you could take certain words back, you probably would, like it's in your heart of hearts, right? the only reason you do that is just to free them. That's it, and that's the only reason she does it. So getting into this idea of the Leela. The Leela is, very much, I mean, it's used in male or feminine practices, but it's a very feminine thing because it's playful. And it's like, you think of it as something like, it's like almost like a game, like it's playful in that way. It's a very feminine kind of quality. This Leela is this divine play. And the forgetting is like, it's the poppies in the field in the Wizard of Oz, right? You forget, right? It's like you go to sleep. It's part of the archetype of being human. We go to sleep. The closer we're getting to our magnificence, the closer we're getting to the mother herself, to the mother's lap, the more sleepy we're likely to get. Like that's the archetype. There's either the poppy field or there's the dragon that's blowing his fiery, sleepy breath on you. Something's happening, right? We forget. And it's part of the playfulness. We don't need to feel any kind of judgment, any kind of shame. We don't need to do that to ourselves. We don't need to do it to each other. It's like if we can just like, I forgot again. Okay, whoops. Okay, let's go. And really, really enjoy, because the feminine practice, one thing that is so true about it is that it's beautiful, it's playful. It's got this quality to it that's very lovely. And when we look around at the troubles that are working themselves through in the world right now and that are coming to the surface and having to be addressed and things like that, they're not playful, right? They're really not playful. And some of them are just are horrible. And yeah, we're not going to just start a game in the midst of it all, but it's understanding that our consciousness, we need that levity. We have to have the levity. We have to have the levity with it. We have to be able to have the understanding that actually, to me, the levity is understanding that there's really nothing wrong. We are in right now. I'm just talking about right now. Right now, we're in challenging times of evolution. Or challenging, I don't even like, because it sounds like maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't. I don't believe there's any way that we're not going to make it, whatever that means. I believe we're in like a deep, just a really dense experience of evolution. We're going through some really profound density. And so it takes a lot of churning, to get this piece moving. It's like our feet are, in the mud. We're lotus flowers, but we're just like, we're trying to come up through the mud so that eventually our shoots are going to find their way into the water, and then there's going to be a flower, but we're in the mud right now.
Yeah, well, and I think so much of, some of the very difficult things playing out on the world stage and in our own consciousness has a lot to do with our identification with being separate from the divine, right? This fighting over who owns the divine, fighting over who owns our Mother Earth, fighting over the resource, it's like we've forgotten her. And to some degree, sometimes things have to get really bad for us to finally say, this is clearly not working. If we look at even just the microcosm of our own lives, sometimes our patterns have to really get dense before we're finally like, I'm sick of this and I am going to do what it takes to transform now. And I think as a humanity, I'm feeling that friction of like, we are over it and something's going to move, and this is Ma's grace, all of it. It's very hard to see Ma's grace in some of these darker faces, and it's not a spiritual bypass, but just like we are being asked to wake up. And sometimes Ma has to get kind of loud and be like, you are sleeping. There's the cute little, we're not harming anyone else sleeping that Ananda Shakti is talking about, where we don't have to judge ourselves. And then there's this deeper sleeping where there can be harm. And this is where we really need the mother's grace and her power. And this is a perfect, segue into Navaratri, because here is where we can ask, Mother, please, please come, please hold us, please bring your transformative power through us so that we may know love, so that we may love each other and stop warring each other, so that we may love ourselves, because if we don't love ourselves, we can't love others, so that we can love the animals and the plants and the environment and see your beauty in all things, and just to surrender our hearts to her, to offer our efforts to her. And the gems you just shared, Ananda Shakti, are just so like, those are true gems. So I'm going to just reiterate to create spaces of remembering around yourself. Hang her image on an altar or on your wall. Just like listen to her, sacred chants to the goddess. Obviously we're going to have 9 days where you get to be held in this container full of wisdom and beauty, and just give yourself to her over these 9 days. And if you like what you experience, keep doing it. So I want us to close with this, but I also want to share an invitation. We'll have more information about this in our email, but Ananda, Shakti, and I are bringing a group for our next pilgrimage to India in February, and we're so excited. Our group is half full, and we will just get to be living this beauty. And speaking of a container of remembrance, that will be exactly what this journey is. We'll be visiting temples. We'll get to chant to her in the temples. We'll be sharing teachings and practices of goddess worship, and we'll be dancing, and Ananda Shakti will be teaching yoga every day. We'll get to really immerse in the culture. This is not the kind of trip where we are just looking out of a window and watching India pass us by. We're going in and really communing with her. And I can say from my own experience, and I think Ananda Shakti would second this, that in India, you will have a more tactile experience of the mother than anywhere on the planet. Anywhere. I have to go back occasionally just to re-up on my just being in her arms, and Ananda Shakti just straight up decided to live there. So for that reason. So yeah, is there anything you'd like to add about the Divine Dream Tour? We'll have more info in the email.
Said it really beautifully. It's for women who really want to take that adventure, the adventure of their soul, into the love that they are. It really is, to have that blossom from the inside. It's like awakening the feminine heart, the jewel in the feminine heart. It really is about that. And as Hale already mentioned, we're going to be doing it through the fine arts, through the yogic arts, in some of the most sublime and divine places that you can imagine, where the atmosphere is literally charged with this frequency. Like, for instance, during lockdown, COVID time, everything was closed, but the Devi temples stayed open. You couldn't necessarily go inside, but you could look from the outside. They'd keep the door open, and because they knew that she was the one who was going to change this for everybody. And so they kept them activated and kept them open. It was really powerful. So the understanding of the potency of the Divine Mother is so real there. So tangible, so real.
I mean, India is one of the last places on earth that has a living, active goddess worship, goddess temples. It's really something. So you're invited to join us. I realize we're pre-recording this, so we might be even more full by the time you're watching this. Reach out to me. Reach out to me if you have questions. And what a wonderful start to Navaratri. Thank you so much, Ananda Shakti. And thank you so much to all who are here and witnessing. And I will see you tomorrow for day 2 with our next presenter. Jai Ma.
Jai Ma, thank you for having me.